My heart is pumping. I am so unbelievably ready to get into this, and we're already starting off with some spicy things. Zero's off the board.
Zero off the board. We're going to see Empire try and deny that intel gain that we so often see attackers try to go for, specifically for North American teams, especially with TSM being no exception to that. Hibana going to be our second follow-up, the most common heart breacher in the meta right now. It's probably as well one of our top band operators on the attacking side. She's just far too universally useful, especially with the more recent change to the way that her pellets work, as you could pick and choose how large of a hole you want to make and where exactly you want to put it down. Things will look pretty normal on the defensive side to start things out, as Mira will be our first ban there. You guys know how that one goes. She's been the pick of the litter for some time, and the same can be said for Valkyrie. Once again, our most banned operator overall from this event that will continue to stay true here on our second to last day.
And this is indeed going to be TSM's map pick as well, which means Empire got to pick the side they wanted to go to, and they chose defense. The side right now that's favorable on Bank happens to be offense, so there's probably some things in the cards that we're going to see here. Extremely excited to see how we start off. We're going downstairs to lockers and CCTV, and not only that, we also have Dan on the vigil. We'll see if he sticks to that, especially with Shepard on this castle. We could be looking for a roam strategy to start things off, but they're already starting to throw the curveballs at us. It's going to be Capcan for the defense.
The roam game is something that you guys at home are definitely going to be wanting to focus on. You heard Fresh talk about it towards the tail end of the death segment there. Empire has been struggling to properly detail those on pretty much all the sites here across some of the other maps as well, and obviously since they have not played into Bank, we don't necessarily know what to expect. We know for a fact, though, there's been a lot of talk behind the scenes. Empire don't necessarily like to go into this one, but at the same time, could have been saving some pocket strats for this point in the tournament now that they're nearly at the bitter end of it here. So TSM's got their work cut out for them. Thankfully for the TSM fans at home, the statistics look good for them, especially in their last matchup versus Team Liquid. They dominated inside of the early round with an average across the entire team of plus 2.4 when it comes to their opening kill ratio. So TSM should be in good straits there, but let's take a peek now as the round's about to get started for real, and we'll see what exactly Empire can offer us.
Renee, you're going to be looking to Bolo to have a huge game here, just like he did up against Liquid. As John was saying, this man went truly nuclear. Plus 15 on his KD spread. We'll have to see how they want to start off, but you could say very similar things for Empire as well. As Shepard, the hard breach, hard support for Empire, topping the frag department as well at plus 13. Truly electric stuff here on the board for us, ladies and gents. But as we get 30 seconds in here, we'll see TSM starting to prioritize the north end of the map and begin this clear on the top floor.
Dan's going to create a nice little matrix for himself to play into here. Still 2 of those EDDs to go down as well. One more complete kill box he can make for himself. Is keep in mind, you can stack those now. If it's been a while since you watched Siege, that's the possibility of taking a player down outright if they waltz through the wrong door. And we've seen that happen at least once here. I believe I remember the Sonics unfortunately fell victim to it some earlier point in the tournament. Bolo, not to be the case today, as he manages to catch at least one of those set up towards the meeting room doorway as they're well on their way to clearing out this upstairs hold, and specifically Dan's position, as you can see the Jackal track forcing him back down the main staircase.
And although unbeknownst to TSM, they actually have a fantastic lineup for this clear of Bank. Although Empire will be on the roam, there's easy intel now for Bolo with those Inox scans going through and being able to get some extra info, especially onto Dan's location as they continue to try and hold down open area. Still have another person inside of Kitchen as well, as we're about halfway through here. So does Empire want to continue to hold on to this, especially as TSM begin to coil around this side of the map? Bolo trying to be aware of anyone rotating up top. They've got a good read on Dan, as Bolo's going to take a lot of heat from the main stairs.
Back away smartly, though, realizing once again that a potential pinch could have been coming his way if he chose to stick around the first floor landing area. So the position from Empire is going to remain strong, because not only do they still have Dan in place, but at the same time, a second member of their team sits closer to open area as well. Scyther in for the assist. This is perfect delay coming out for the Empire roster right now. And that whiff grenade you may have seen getting chucked to the castle barricade has only held back the clear from TSM even further. Down to the last minute, though, Empire seem fully satisfied with the time they've wasted away, so Scyther and Dan are going to curl back into the site through the open hatch and be able to play out these remaining 50 seconds, choosing to take their position of the fact that TSM are not going to have enough time to clear this one out, and there we go. There's the traps working out perfectly for Empire, as Dan's going to catch Chala now that TSM are panicking to get into the site with enough time.
You have to check those door frames, but on low time, it's the last thing you're thinking about on the offensives. Anyone could be anywhere in the moment, and now with 30 seconds remaining, TSM have to try and force themselves upon this site. The only issue is they don't have the time to try and pull all of these smokes away from Always. They have to try and find a different plant spot. Luckily enough, Geo is going to open up the far side of the CCTV space as Bolo will rotate back across to be ready for a red drop here as they try and put pressure on these players.
Gonna try to swing it in here. The shot's coming in to try and mask the players in. Geo will at least get to start his first plant attempt. Nitro is available and properly utilized. The 2-for-1 shade exchanges it out. Empire try to force their way back in, and they succeed as they hold the line on round number 1, taking the lead against TSM.
A fantastic Lockers defense that was led off by that roam on the top floor that slowly bled down into open area. Fantastic rotations out of Empire to hold back TSM. Bolo has been the spearhead for this team so often for them on their offensive sides, and with him taking so much damage early on, he can't achieve the same results. It's impossible to try and gunfight these people when you're such low HP. So they have to try and find a different way to do it, and it just simply doesn't work out, especially with those EDDs catching some people off guard and picking off bodies early.
Perfect time delay over the course of that first 2 minutes, especially coming in from Empire. See that great flick from Joystick as well to catch maybe the last little wrinkle coming in through the primary basement hatch. Be able to try and force TSM into the site, which did not work at all. They did not have enough time for the clear or the site access, let alone trying to gather that proper amount of intel. So we saw, even before they worked their way in there, Chala unfortunately falling due to him not checking the doorways, and more specifically the EDDs. Perfect play from Empire. But now things are going to get a little bit more difficult. They can't necessarily rely on a straightforward plan of falling back into the site here, because there'll be way more options for TSM to assault the site, possibly even bypassing that extended roam entirely.
We'll see if they want to extend this upstairs, and they damn well should. We'll just have to see what they want to apply to that space. Hatch will be reinforced. Dan will more than likely be applying quite a few of these EDDs inside of this area just to catch some more people off guard. We'll see how often they're bringing this cap can as well, as eventually it will be played out. Even though it does delay some extra time, there is some other things in the cards that you can use on the defensive side to assist you. So we'll see if Empire does end up switching gears here in a little while. But past that, Joystick and Always will also be applying their utility towards the site with Wamai discs as well as his ADSs to try and soak up a lot of this throwable utility by TSM as they get out onto the map.
Going to be a slow roll here for TSM, as once again, they know they've got a lot of work to do and a lot of things to clear out here before they can even think about inching themselves closer to the bomb site itself. So 30 seconds used, and not going to see a whole lot transpire from that as they just start to take up initial positioning. Merc with a nice little angle here should be able to knock out some of the utility on the inside, or possibly eat up a few of those magnets the Joystick had thrown out from his utility on Wamai. Aside from that, though, Team Empire, as we can see, ready to potentially take contention against some of these early pushes from the lobby. You've got 3 different players ready to swing from 3 different positions. TSM, I believe, is aware of 2 of them, but the third might catch them off guard if they don't fully check themselves.
Joystick looking around for a drone inside of the elevator, but he'll drop off instead, and Bolo almost with a nice shot onto the E2 players, but now it's a crossfire back and forth. They'll take down Joystick as the other Empire member drops downstairs instead. So now TSM have found their mark, and they still have plenty of time to begin working this middle section of the map. Also have top control now, so look to achieve to start breaking up this flooring and making it difficult to play on site.
Yes, I'm fixing the problem from the previous round already, mainly due to the nature of the way this site is set up. I already mentioned at the beginning of the round, TSM have way more real estate to play with here, and Empire don't have as straightforward of a path to fall back into their site hold as they do before. Need to delay for way longer into the round and in way more dangerous positions than we were seeing them do back on the basement hold. And we're already going to start to see signs of that struggle. But at the same time, Empire going to keep 4 players strong, ready for the fight. Shepard was hoping to act himself as a late round contribution here from Server and a possible rotate up through blue stairs, but he's going to get found out via a drone here, so more than likely that'll be dead. Wouldn't be surprised if we see him try to make that play a little bit earlier rather than later on in the round. But regardless, things have slowed up here for TSM. They're sitting at the precipice over by Archives, but the walls have been left soft, and there's plenty of obliging members of Empire ready to take a fight. Despite that, though, TSM cannot find another pick, which they're going to want here before they start forcing themselves in once the time gets too low to justify any more slow play.
It's been Merc with the forward pressure so far. He was also the one to pick off Joystick as he continues to hold the angle through small office, but now TSM needs to start breaking up this kitchen wall as well. An impact up top won't be able to get the initial one, but doesn't get the second. It will indeed, as they'll break that up. With very minimal time now and 0 exothermic charges for Geo, they're going to have to try and get something else done across the map. They also have to worry about this rotation from Shepard down low as he had dropped down the elevator hatch earlier on. Frag Grenade out to be able to try and clear out some utility or some area inside of the kitchen, but now it's Nitro Cells for the defense to hold back TSM even further. The case is down in sight. Bolo's dead as well. TSM has no answers, and this is looking like an Empire round all over again.
No time left, and we will see a few kills bleed in for Chala, but it's far too little, far too late into the round, as for the second time in a row, TSM grasp at straws as they try to fight for site positioning inside of the site itself, with only about 20 seconds left, and due to some great interruption that came in through the impacts, knocking out what would have been a pivotal opening that probably would have allowed TSM to flood in. Empire hold the line for a second consecutive round. This choice to start on the defensive side is working out perfectly for them right now, as TSM have no answers to get themselves into the site quickly enough.
This has actually been such an insane defensive side from Empire so far. I know we're only 2 rounds deep, but just look at the way that they hold their map control. That's the biggest thing right now. They're delaying time for TSM through this means. And the biggest thing is these mid-round audibles, these drops downstairs, these rotations down low, all these different things that Empire are doing. This causes question inside of the TSM lineup. You don't know necessarily what you're supposed to be doing in the moment because they could be anywhere. You don't have the information like we do here in order to tell you what's happening on the Empire side, so they're continually, like John was saying, grasping at straws, trying to find these Empire bodies, but they simply can't do it. Empire lose joystick early on, but what did TSM get for that? Literally nothing.
Free access to archives is pretty much about it, but even from there, weren't able to do anything with it. The wall was left soft, so they couldn't freely use the room, nor try to open it up as an access point, as it simply would have become a choke point into Empire's favor, as we even saw that later in the round when I believe we saw Dan or Shepard able to pick up that first exchange, which was the beginning of the end of TSM's attack in those final 30 seconds. Empire now move to their tertiary site, which is going to be the second floor hold here, as they go up to the inside of meeting for themselves. We'll see how this pans out for them as the operator labs get changed slightly as well. Most notably, Dan coming into this round here with the Echo, bringing those Yokai drones into the fold here, possibly for a little bit of active movement to scout out the TSM players early on. And of course, those stuns help out should TSM try to go for a bit of a rush play through these window repels. Not looking like that's going to happen, though, based on the initial positioning. They'll be going for normal clear once again.
And as for TSM, they'll start things out like you traditionally would on Bank. North side as well as lobby repels up and onto the map here to try and get some crossfires towards the defense. Have to worry about the lobby space as well, just to make sure nobody is trying to man those windows. Past that, you're going to be looking for the windows on the other side inside a square to make sure nobody's going to jump out on you as well. It's a hot spot for anyone to get very aggressive and one-for-one themselves, as we've seen time and time again here at SI. But now, as I said, TSM will now begin transitioning into the building through the lone space as well as lobby. Controlling this with Bolo and Merc for the time. Bolo not really able to find too much intel through his Inox in the current moment. They'll keep Achieved on the north windows as they continue this clear, but as we know, there's nobody on this mid-floor, so TSM will have to end up clearing out the rest of this as Merc goes on a solo mission up towards the top of Spiral, but Scyther seemingly ready, chomping at the bit for anyone to try and come up into this area. Merc still has plenty of lifeline utility as well, but doesn't want to try and make this solo play. He needs some assistance from his teammates, and that's why Bolo starts pushing up white.
Well, looking to get into position, we will more than likely see both of these players try to push at the same time, trying to watch out here to make sure there isn't going to be any utility he has to watch out for as he crawls up the steps. As remember, TSM does not have a great picture of what this overall setup looks like just yet here. Empire's been doing a great job of denying it. TSM's already used half their drone count. Merc walks by a potential free kill against Joystick, and he turns it around, but at the same time, Chala and Bolo, and now Bolo again! What was that as he snipes out, snapshots Dan from the side of his screen? Chala, he gets number 4, and now Joystick's left alone on an island here. A 1v3 but set against him, and he cannot maintain as Bolo gets one more kill to finally put TSM on the board.
Don't let the man warm up. That's all I'm going to say. If Bolo starts hitting shots like that, I don't know what Empire does. That was truly disgusting through the conference wall, but they're going to need a lot more than that to put Empire away here. That's TSM's first round.
Beautiful stuff from TSM, and specifically a great performance coming in for Bolo there. Curious to see how he's able to develop himself throughout the course of this series. We saw him be the huge frag leader for this team in their most recent series that they played against Team Liquid. But the interesting thing was, despite that fact, he was only 3rd on the team overall for cost, so the kills kind of had mixed contributions to the overall team's success on a round-to-round basis there. Pay close attention to that, as obviously this time he's going to get major points in that regard, as he pretty much single-handedly gives the team access to the site. But time to see what else he can do here as now Empire return to the postures where they've been able to take easy control of things on previous rounds here as they head back down into the basement.
The first one is always the difficult one, especially when you're on a stage like this. So for TSM, have they finally hit their stride? We'll have to see. For Empire, it's back downstairs. They don't trust CEO any longer, and why would they? They have better sites open, and that's exactly why we're headed towards lockers. And not only that, we're having a very similar setup here for Empire. Some more reinforcements dedicated towards the kitchen space, and this time, Joystick will be on the vigil.
Some slight changes being made there. Keep in mind the Joystick did have this selected on the first attempt here, but ended up 6 picking away from it. So now we're going to go full-fledged into it since they know this roam game is going to work out from the results back in round number 1 here. But we'll likely see stylistically the same type of play. Most notably, of course, Dan right back onto the cap can as it worked out great here. Tripped up at least one member of TSM and made them think twice about every single door they walked through.
As for TSM, you're really looking for the full map clear here. You want to see them take this top floor and abuse that verticality up against this roam game from Achieved. Use that sledgehammer. That's what it's intended for. Make sure you apply pressure from multiple different angles. Make these gunfights difficult. You don't want to just give them away willy-nilly, and that's exactly why we're going to see Bolo start clearing this out upstairs. They entered through this last time in very similar straits, but now Bolo with an opportunity around the main stairs. Luckily enough for the defenders, the recent map buff for Bank has made it to where those are no longer just random little bars that you can shoot through. It's a concrete slab instead at the top of that stairwell, so he'll be able to stay safe transitioning down through that staircase. Now for TSM, they'll abuse this top floor, just as I was talking about before with Achieve, but they really have to worry about what's going on over inside of the open area space. Dan, well, at least has a nitro cell up towards the ceiling. See if he can possibly do anything up against this vertical game as of right now, with nades coming in from Achieved.
He's going to bank. It'll land well, but Scyther catches it, give it too much of a window to escape it here. So Gio will reconfirm that player survives with his drone going to the inside here. It's looking like, once again, half the round gone by. They're going to pull most of this extended game back, all of it, in fact. 30 seconds earlier than we saw them do it back in round number 1 here, as yet again, Empire feel they've accomplished their goal of wasting away time, and they're going to let TSM flounder on their own mistakes here in the last minute and a half.
Well, for Bolo, he'll be holding on to main stairs, and luckily enough, Empire's opened all of the hatches for them, so this will be a fairly straightforward affair past that. What you're looking to see is, has Empire delayed enough time? Do they have enough utility on site to stop this from happening? The only stop that they have is always Smokes and Scyther's nitro cell, so you're looking to see those strike true if you're rooting for the EU squad. Gio will begin breaking up the walls here inside of Service with those exothermic charges. He's already used one, but luckily enough, the other wall is soft, so they'll easily be able to get that with the sledgehammer. The smoke's already being used by Always as well, as Merc will be on Overwatch here from the main small hatch. Plant already started from Gio, but it's only going to be a fake here as Dan takes so much damage.
Connecting a lot, and still with plenty of extra time here, TSM seems to have learned their lesson from the previous attempt, but they still need to get themselves in and not lose their entire stack here. Joystick and Shepard both knocking out players. The plant does get itself down here, but the post-plant positions are going to be incredibly weak. Look at Empire rushing all the way upstairs here now to collapse against the remnants of TSM, which has already been brought down to 2 due to another kill being found by Empire. Achieved and Gio need to waste out these last 30 seconds here, and Achieved puts himself on a good footing to start this one off as he goes back to Copier and catches Always dropping down through the stock hatch here. Achieved as well, ready to stop this. They need to push back in, and it's all going to fall onto Achieved. Stops the first counter defuse attempt. Second one hasn't been started yet, but Achieved gets cut off by Joystick, and with Dan being nearby the case, there'll be plenty of time for him to hop back onto it. Another round going into the pocket of Empire as they maintain the lead, 3-1.
What a fantastic round from Empire. They know the plant is inevitable at that point, and with the damage that they've already done to this TSM stack, they know that no one's more than likely going to be holding the main stairs properly. And in fact, they aren't. Achieved is holding it from inside of open area, and yes, it's a great angle if they're going to push towards that space, but if they go upstairs, they can completely avoid you. And that's exactly what happens. Always and Joystick getting away with so very much there. Yes, Always gets taken down immediately on the entry to open area, but that gives enough insight for Joystick to be able to abuse that and get not only Gio, but also the follow-up frag inside of that space. Fantastic stuff from Empire here in round 4.
Let's get Empire using their numbers to their advantage in that retake as well. Knew they had the overarching way to get themselves back into the site, and more importantly, get the counter defuse off. Just had to suss out the positions of those last 2 players, and although Achieved sneaks off quite a few of the kills, as we see here, a valiant attempt for him to hold on to the post plant, it is not enough as far too many of his teammates go down prior to the diffuser being planted on the ground here. Empire going to continue to rotate in the way we would expect them to as they go back up into open area for their second to last defense here. TSM struggling to pick up rounds on this first half. If they can repeat their success on the second floor hold to make it 2-4, that's certainly going to be palatable here, but they'll have their own work cut out for them when things switch over to the defensive side for them.
This is starting to become a serious issue for TSM just due to the score line. You're on the favorable side in the moment, and you really can't get much done. Empire have already grasped a hold of 3 separate rounds. If they get their 4th here, I don't know what TSM does with the rest of this. You're going to have such a stellar defensive side up against Empire on a map that is so easy to slice up from the offensive side. Empire's just done such a good job of exploiting the roam, not only in the early game, but also the late game like we saw inside of that last round. It's super difficult for TSM to hit their mark right now, especially with all of the different things that are being thrown at them, like this cap can that we constantly see. It's just so very difficult for them right now in order to achieve what they want. Although now for TSM, it's back to basics. They'll start clearing out the lobby once again here with Bolo on the lead.
Bolo continuing to try and hunt these players down here. Drone's already confirmed that there's not going to be any threats working their way in near the spiral staircase, so we'll be having free reign over the front teller's area, but now he needs to get himself ready for a fight as someone does sit behind inside of the teller's room itself here. It's Scyther. Merc already having a hard lock position on him, and Scyther nearly giving himself away for a second time, trying to hop over that copier wall there, but he'll make the transition, get himself back into the relative safety of the immediate bomb site area, and keep himself alive to fight another day. That is going to be an advance for TSM, though, as they'll clear out tellers and get that site access, or at least that map control that they're going to look to need to get closer to the site.
A perfectly timed rotation here from Empire as that timer continues to dwindle, but also TSM continually tagging up these Empire site players. Shepard taking a little bit of heat. Scyther earlier on instead of that engagement with Merc as well. Achieve now trying to break up the floor, but do it in a very safe way. That's the big thing. A lot of nitro cells downstairs could spell his demise if he ends up stepping wrong. Chala currently has control of the bottom of square, and yes, indeed, it will be a double hard breach setup here with Geo on that thermite. So they'll be looking to break up as many of these hatches as possible, but priority on the stock hatch here as they're looking to get rid of some of these mute jammers around the space. Always won't take any damage from that, but the mute jammer surely will. They impact over one side, but those impacts do not reach low enough, and Shepard gets taken out by Chala.
Utility not holding itself as strongly as it did for Empire back on the previous attempt on round number 2 here, so they're going to start to struggle a bit. Always knows he's lost that EDD, so he's got to be careful. He goes for a wild swing through the Selma breach, however, and that gives away his life to Merc as TSM continue to find openings where they previously evaded them. Things looking good here for them to maybe negotiate a second round, but still 3 players standing tall for Empire in the site, and now they're going to start to frag back here as Joystick peeks out towards the square hall and takes down Merc.
So many angles for Empire to worry about, but they work both ways. That's the big thing. TSM starting to lose bodies. They need to be forceful in this area as a team. Frag grenade out here. It won't find its mark. Joystick with yet another kill, and now we're down into the 3 versus 3. Can Bolo be the difference maker? It's Geo first to take down Joystick as they continue on into the site. Dan with 1, Dan with 2, Scyther with 1 as well, and Empire shuts it down in the 3v3.
TSM with no intel and no confidence in their own push in the final seconds of the round there. They give over that remaining time to Empire and funnel directly into the crosshair of the members still standing tall. That's a perfect hold from Empire as they steal this one right out of the hands of TSM for round number 5 and secure at minimum the lead going into the second half with what's going to be a worst case 4-2 scoreline. Possibility now for it to be 5-1 if they can correct their mistakes on the second floor hold coming up on the last round.
And no tack time out here from Pojo Man as well. Just letting TSM run the gauntlet instead and seeing what they can achieve in this very last round of offense. Much rather use that once they get to the defensive side, but as of right now, it's looking like Empire could run amok here as well. The only saving grace they have is that this is the CEO defense for Empire up next, that they were not able to really get anything done up against TSM in the way that they handled things around the spiral in White Stairs space, able to get so many frags, especially for Bolo's case.
So let's see now as TSM once again going to look to try and harass their way in against Empire's upstairs hold. Things are going to look pretty similar as before. Obviously, we will see the cap can swapped away from it. Had fairly minimal success this time on the open area hold, and we didn't actually see them use it on the second floor play, so no surprise that it's going to be ditched one final time. And of course, the Echo now being brought back in for this hold as well for Dan to play into here, alongside the usual assortment of defensive operators that we come to expect. The smoke, to try and choke point things out in the final seconds of the round if TSM TSM play too slowly. Your utility mitigation split between joystick and always. And then Scyther, of course, try to minimize the drone intel via those mute jammers and possibly block off a wall or two temporarily.
This might be the most standard lineup you can possibly get inside of Rainbow Six Siege. This is applicable to any site that you could possibly think of in the game. As for Dan, though, with that switch up, Echo just so strong in this position, not only because of the cams you can get around the space, that this is what I thought we were going to be seeing this round, is Dan with an extended yokai here for some extra information, but you can also use those on site for those last second delays. That way that Shepard's utility is even more paramount inside of that situation. It's going to be so difficult for them to try and get rid of both of these all at the same time. And with that extra insight that we were talking about before, you could see some extra picks coming out here from Empire.
Well, let's see if Empire could start themselves out on the right foot yet again, as they already have a dominating stance coming off this defensive side. Going to look to really lock it in with a 5th possible round. And for TSM, their confidence has sunk massively in comparison to what we were seeing earlier on here. Fast clears, fast droning, no longer the case, especially for this site here, as they want to be very cautious. Empire has tripped them up far more than a single few times inside of this half here, and they want to make sure that no additional mistakes are made. They need this second round, and they've already yielded success on a previous attempt here, so just need to rerun it one more time, and at least they can put that second one on the board.
All right, well, Geo with Overwatch from Charla here, the hard breaching duo working square at the current moment. But TSM, at least for Merc's case, inside of lobby. Trying to make sure to measure twice and cut once in this scenario, as this round is of the utmost importance currently. The scoreline given. Achieve now with a nade out, looking for someone inside of Conference, but doesn't find a home. It doesn't. It'll just blow up on the wall instead. And now Merc taking some heat all the way up in ATM's. Empire looking feisty. Merc knows one's coming down the stairwell, but he can't win it. Joystick, he doesn't need the 1.5. He'll just slam him with a hollow instead.
And a complete switch up in the early round Confidence, and now it's Empire going out wildly here. Despite that loss over towards Spiral, Geo's going to go for a plant attempt. And look at this Overwatch from the repelled positions. Chala and Bolo executing both the players that try to stop the plant here. Shepard seemingly had an angle on the plant through soft breach, but was not going to be able to detect it apparently, so he lets it go off here. Post-plant positions are now maintained for TSM, and suddenly this is a much tougher round for Empire. We see that impact go out, but it drops to the ground as Achieve snipes out always before he can get anything done. Shepard's been found as well by Achieve, and now Scyther, he's already been scouted out due to a flank drone positioned over here in lobby. He's got no one to try and pull into this fight here. They know exactly what every single move he makes is going to be here, and with only 5 seconds left, he'll have no time remaining. TSM will secure the expected second round here and at least make the scoreline close as we get ready to head into the second half.
Something that was desperately needed for TSM in the moment, but now they have to have a fantastic defensive side just like we saw from Empire. And the scariest thing is, you have no idea what Empire is bringing into this situation. We have not seen them play Bank since the EUL, and they lost. So what have they done? What homework are they bringing to the table here, as we'll see their lineup for the very first time? Dan will be bringing the Ash. We'll have Buck as well from Always. The joystick working in Jackal here as well, off of the Yana, and Thatcher, who we didn't see at all on TSM's side, will be utilized here as well.
That was part of the gamble for choosing into this map here. Obviously, they knew their opponents weren't going to feel too confident about playing into it themselves. They've even stated that to quite a few people around here at the venue, but at the same time, you can never discount what teams might be keeping in their pocket, ready to pull out, especially at this late stage of the tournament here. This is where things are often going to be saved for, and it seems like Team Empire might have played it properly. Probably going to end up re-hosting this round, folks. Give us just a second here, and we'll get that confirmed for you. Once again, TSM now on the defensive side, and Empire
face against one of these teams. Whoever ends up losing this, and they'll play off in the lower bracket final. But as John was saying, one of them has to go on, and as of right now, it's looking like it could possibly be Empire. They definitely did their research on Bank, and they're looking fantastic in the moment, but we just switched sides. So it's time to see if Empire have the same luster on their offense.
Yep, so like we said before, there's going to be a little bit of a difference in the attacking lineup now as Empire jumps over towards it. I talked plenty about that Thatcher, so going to be able to use that alongside some of this more active breaching capability here, specifically the Buck coming out for Always as well. Going to make things a little bit hairy, specifically on the bottom to top clears. He's going to be able to waltz into areas like below stock and open area, like working their way over into areas like archives and tellers, and be able to possibly shoot out some of this extended positioning that we're more than likely going to have from TSM to start the round off.
Now here's the beauty of this though for TSM and the NA fans at home. If they kill Always, we now have a major problem for Empire. And that is mostly because they only have Ace outside of that. And you have to use 2 of his 3 Selmas in order to get a singular hatch open. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I'd invest. That's just me.
Important to note, of course, always, aside from bringing the soft breach to the table, is going to bring those 2 can openers too, and that will make things a little bit easier, specifically when it comes to the hatch opening, as Stokes was just mentioning. That's the main reason why they're going to want to keep him alive, to try and use that utility at a later portion of this round here, and not waste the Selmas, which will be certainly needed to get further access to walls leading into the site and open up the angles that we saw in the first half TSM struggled to find for themselves here. But first, they have to clear out the extended game, as TSM is going to bring a lot of that to bear. Also, specifically over here in Tellers, we can already see one player veering out for a peek, and some good intel bleeding in there from Chala as he's on the Echo, bringing those yokai drones in a fairly easy to see place, but due to the size of the room, the height of the room, it might not be something that Empire necessarily check.
Pretty difficult in order to find those, especially since really your only Q is the audio. Yes, they're no longer invisible, but look, it's quite easy in order to get this intel unbeknownst to the offensive side. They know exactly where this man is. Merkel to smoke Joystick as he is just not aware of any of the positioning in the current moment. Empire begin to break up the map now. Breaching charges out here as Dan will pre-fire into Kitchen, but for TSM, it's looking quite similar to what Empire wanted to do on their defense. It'll be the extended hold initially, but they've already gotten their pick onto Joystick, and not only that, it's also Jackal. So now things even more difficult, especially as the drone game begins to dwindle.
Empire being so careful, even with just their utility clear, as we can see Dan trying to knock out one of the castle barricades from up on top after opening up some soft breach through that top floor panel there. Works out perfectly, of course, as now Scyther can also swing in and have full view into the open area in case anyone from TSM was going to be a little bit ignorant to that. Thankfully, for TSM's sake, it's not the case here. They've moved everyone out of there, and aside from maybe a few stragglers, they've also given up their positions, playing this hold incredibly similarly to the way we saw Empire doing back in the first half, with now everybody returning to the basement hold with less than a minute left on the clock.
Everybody probably wants a Chala in the moment on their team as well. Look at how many cameras this man has manned inside of these opening 2 minutes. He is constantly beginning info for TSM and making it very easy for them to safely get back to site. But now they have to make the grandstand. CEO, or rather CCTV, now the priority here for Empire as they begin breaking things up downstairs from the server basis. Geo will begin smoking this off and making it difficult to plant for a time here, as does he still have plenty of utility? He's got one more in the pocket. The EMP is going to go wide over towards the actual door frame, so won't be able to stop it there, but it might be Chala instead, as Shepard already halfway through this plant. Are they going to stop it? It's Bolo with the Nitro Cell, and now Empire has to hop too, but nobody close to home. TSM win the basement defense.
Way too deep of a plant there for Empire, so not nearly enough time to get a second player onto it. Even if they could, unfortunately, probably would have had to lose a life or two just to get back onto the case there due to the forward positioning they went towards it. Empire struggling with the same issue we saw TSM doing back in the first half here, as they failed to clear out enough of the extended game and don't have enough time left to flush out the remaining defensive utility between nitros as well as gas grenades from the smoke. It is way too much with way too little time. And with that said, TSM are going to bounce right back here. Now only 1 round behind Empire at 3-4.
Well, not only that, they are full on abusing Echo in this position. If you remember, for Empire, they only used Echo on the top floor. Echo on Bank overall is such a ludicrous op because of the different areas that you can put these yokais, man. You see it out inside the lobby, getting all of that insight onto Joystick, and he thinks that he's so sneaky, just crawling in through ATM. He's like, oh, I'm going to get in behind him. They have no idea I'm dead. You know, that's exactly what's going on. They need to make sure that they are backing up Joystick in this position, and they're also aware of what's going on around the space. If they continue to see this Echo pick, honestly, I would expect an IQ to come in here and try and get rid of these yokai drones, because they're just doing way too much for TSM in the moment.
It's going to become a factor yet again here, as obviously Trello's re-picked into it. It's had plenty of effectiveness, and there's a good possibility that Empire go for the same exact type of clear at the beginning of this round towards the front lobby. So possibility for, once again, it to be abused in the same factor as well here. TSM also bringing a huge plethora of utility on the defensive side. We've got shields, we've got nitros, we've got a bulletproof, we've got motion sensors being brought out for TSM also here. So they're bringing everything to bear to try and stop any early advances from Empire.
You just don't have your Siege Costco membership, my friend. You just got to go out there, buy it in bulk, and that's exactly what TSM's going to do. They're bringing everything except the kitchen sink into open area, and you damn well should, honestly. The only thing that they don't have to add to this would be Jaeger, but they have achieved to be able to do a lot of the heavy lifting in that scenario either way. He'll also have some proxies to be able to give some extra insight past the bulletproofs and everything else that TSM has to offer with this lineup. Joystick also going to be bringing the PDW here, so interesting pick here past the C7E, but you have a deep magazine, and that's the beauty of that. As we've all learned at this LAN, a lot of bullets in Siege is usually a pretty good thing.
Important to note, too, that Empire have brought a soft breach insurance policy for this round. 9 of the panels are going to be brought in breaching charges, more specifically to try and account for the fact that if always gets dropped in the early round here, they'll still have great capability to be able to knock out some of the top-down angles here and open up some of the post-plants that they were going to want here, assuming they were able to get the plant down in the first place.
This is going to be pretty risky for the positioning for Achieve now, just because they broke up the E3 wall here. This is one that's usually a priority on Bank. Look at this angle, folks. Look at how deep this goes. Achieved has to play around this shield, and his only avenue of escape now is through the stock hatch, but that's a big issue. Always is going to flood this in. He can't leave. Bolo's now down to Dan, and Empire firing on all cylinders here for round 8.
2 players down before TSM can even think about what was happening with the opening of the elevator wall. That's going to limit their potential to a huge degree. They've lost all upstairs presence. Empire just breathing a sigh of relief, taking a moment to themselves, as once again, they're going to jump on drones between Shepard and Always just to figure out where some more of these players are. Joystick will nearly get himself found out here, but at the same time, he's able to return some serious damage onto Merc in the process. Always going to try to hunt this player down, but he's got to be cautious too. Those shots go both ways here, and he's nearly going to lose his head trying to find it. There we go. There's the shot connecting, but once more, Always backing away from it before he can be fully taken down.
Oh, and a beautiful shot from Dan there that we got to see on the replay as well. Pre-firing out towards Banana and finding the head of Bolo all the way in checkers. Hell of a shot from him, but they're going to need more in order to secure this round. Some serious damage done to Joystick, but he's still alive and well, and he'll find some intel onto Merc, who can't get rid of that track with the backpack. So instead, I'll have to stick to this as Joystick just pre-fires through. Merc's been down, but so is Scyther. Always will pick up Merc. It's down to Chala and Geo on site to try and get something done, but the timing indeed, my friend. It'll take out Chala. It'll take out Geo. It's a flawless round from Empire.
No backup plan for TSM to specifically move away from that outer stocks hold since they lost the elevator positioning. That's normally where you'd want to see something like a mute jammer go down. We may have actually had one. Those breaches were relatively high, so keep in mind the mute jammers were nerfed at an earlier point this year. They no longer will cover the entire hall. Their verticality was taken away, so if you throw them halfway up the wall or more, there's a good chance they'll be able to sneak through, as we more than likely saw there. Empire able to open things up very early on against Achieved, and then immediately following it through with a second kill also left TSM with a shell of their former defense. And although they did good to bleed out the time, nowhere near enough positioning to safely fight out the remaining time bank on the overall round. And as such, Empire able to eventually work their way in without losing a single player along the way. Now just 2 more rounds needed to shut out map number 1.
A fantastic clear from Empire leads us on to round 9 as TSM will throw it to the CEO defense instead. One that we saw Empire actively avoiding whenever they got the opportunity, as well it was the only site that they ended up losing. But for Merc and the rest of TSM, open area obviously not really giving them the results that they want, so they need to try something different, and not a lot of teams playing the archive site nowadays, so instead they'll head to CEO and see what they can do here. The biggest thing is, how can they effectively defend themselves against not only the lobby windows, but also the North Rappel?
We'll find out how exactly that's going to play out now, as once more TSM move away from their previous site choice here and are going to move on to newer pastures to try and claim their second round here on the defensive side. Things looking good on the basement hold, but now they go upstairs for their third and final site before more than likely rotating back down into the basement one final time on round number 10 here. And we'll tell, of course, how Empire, as you were saying before, are going to be able to work their way through that. An easy path is opened again as we have that same stocks position lined up. Possible fallback to the interior of stocks itself through the hatch, but at the same time, just on the previous round, Empire had already established cutoffs through that window, so that might not be a surefire bet to get that player out of there if things are played the same way by Empire. Empire, of course, going to have greater focusing on the rappel this time, but Joystick with the wrong read here. Gets his shoulder shot a few times. He's going to lose about 30% HP. Somebody's returned, however, onto Geo, so it's a relatively even exchange.
Yes, indeed, and also a big change-up in strategy here for TSM as they're trying to hold on to a lot of these walls, all except for the stock position. Not going to have jammers or anything for that, as Geo only has 2 electro claws, so those will be dedicated to other pastures. He's playing currently inside of checkers, trying to delay some more time, as he really can't step up to the plate anymore, as he's about 2 bullets worth of HP away from death. Empire still working this side of the map. They'll begin jumping in towards towards Square with the repel still working out solidly on that north side. Always obviously going to continue to work this space, but he'll get taken down from Merc as he's got the crossfire here at the top of Marble. He's going to continue to try and hold on to the elevator hallway here, but without Always, they need to get Shepard into position to be able to blow some of these walls.
Merc's not going to move himself forward anymore. He knows there's a flank drone watching his position if he tries to go any more forward here. Dan going to open up things on the interior of the site and hopefully take out any mute jammers that were positioned there as well, or rather electric claws. 1-for-1 exchange though, but that only favors TSM in this scenario here with Scythe. They're knocking out Bolo. Still an important member of the team going down here as he is actually on the Echo this time too. So now those Yokai's not going to be able to be relocated anymore. The ones that are alive and up on a ceiling, of course, those can still be utilized, but no longer going to be able to remove them or possibly get them in sight for that late round clutch here if we see a tense plant in the final seconds of the round from Empire. Speaking of which, it's looking like we're going to be pretty close to that here as they have their breach, they have their opening, but they don't have the player count cleared out yet. And now Merc going to finally swing out once again here to claim his second kill. Chala getting another one here for the team as Dan falls, leaving only Shepard in the fight, and he too has no idea where TSM are, so Gio's going to knock him out. And with that, once again, an exchange is picked up here. A 2-to-1 overall site share for TSM as they're going to rotate back downstairs into the basement and try and tie this up one more time. It's 6-6.
And time again, TSM able to punish Empire on the entry. These extended roams really haven't been working out for them that much. It's really been the site play that we've seen to be able to fend off this Empire offense. And what a beautiful shot here to start us off from Merc as he just steps up and takes out the player here at the stock window. But for Empire, they continue to try and fight back. This has been a pretty feisty round that's went back and forth, but luckily enough for TSM, the defensive strategy, especially with having Bolo as well as Chala on these hard set defenders, it's working out extremely well for them. They're going to head back downstairs towards lockers and see if they can have yet another successful defense. And if they do, it's a tied ball game.
So let's see if TSM can do it, as this is the site they closed out on previously here, having the same initial round share as we saw from Empire's own defensive start. 2 rounds in their pocket, 1 loss, just on a different site. And now Bolo going to take a page right out of the Empire strat book here as he's going to bring the cap can into the fold as well.
John, do you mind if I copy your homework? I promise you it's not going to look the same.
I'm going to change it.
I'm going to change it up. You know what I'm going to change? My name. That's what I'm going to change. But here for TSM, we're going to see something extremely similar, all the way down to Merc having Vigil as well. But as we all know, folks, if you played enough Siege, you know that a lot of strategies work. Oh my God! Dan, he gets blown sky high by a Nitro cell. He's just trying to put a breaching charge down, man. And, well, there happens to be another explosive on the other side of that. Kind of hard to hear through those bulletproof panels, and well, Dan's not going to do a lot more hearing inside of this.
That's going to be a very early Nitro deployed by TSM, a perfect trap as it catches the members of Empire and knocks out usually pivotal member of this squad here. Dan going down. Shepard having the Inosh track here. He's going to try to spam him in against it, but as you guys caught, members of TSM long gone from that position, so not going to be able to catch anyone here. However, does now have Overwatch over that position, and it's the same really advantageous spot here for Empire to utilize. A very, very long angle that cuts off a huge rotation point for TSM. So they'll have to be careful here, as long as that player's on that point, they cannot use this hallway to its full effectiveness.
Well, problems now for Empire as this early pick was not supposed to go down this way. And for TSM, now they can play this out really any way they want to. Continue to delay inside of this space. Just leave Merc solo in here. He's got that ERC-7 backpack that can hide him away from drones and everything else. So it should be fairly easy for him to hold on to this, but not until he crosses into sight. There's line of sight, those holes working back onto him instead as he crosses through the open area. And now Scyther's got full control of this. Yes, the delay works out initially for TSM, but the equalizer could come back to bite them.
It's the thing that TSM are going to have to watch out for over the course of this series. Empire, if they want to be, are an incredibly patient team. They've got no problem putting Overwatch over a series of angles there, making sure their teammate crosses off the other side of it here, and just sitting on it for a minute or longer to try and catch themselves a kill to equalize the man count inside of the round here. They've just done that and are now going to need to try and forge their way into this site. That drone will sneak its way. They'll get some good intel into the players outside of lockers, most notably achieved here, but now they've got to hunt them them down. And again, with less than a minute remaining, TSM has given up all their own extended positions and are just going to try to play this one out into the final seconds of the round here, as we'll see Empire move in, get free control of the bottom of blue, and Server along with that, and start to open up their own path towards a plant.
IQ 200 there from Joystick, as Dan will be able to man that drone the entire time and feed them intel onto what TSM's actually doing inside of the site, especially over towards the actual hall space. Yeah, you won't be able to see Gold Vault, but you really don't need to. You can just assume people are in that area as Geo gets taken down. So many soft walls inside of this space, and now he's dusted. Always picks him up, and they're looking to get the plant down now. Shepard to start it off, but no delay unless Chala has something for it, and he does. He'll be able to stop it this time around, but always will go looking for that yokai in the moment, and even if he stops it again, they still have plenty of time in order to plant this. Now Bolo and the rest of TSM have to do something here. Do they have the stop? Bolo will swing through. He downs one. Can he get Shepard on the back end? No, it's Shepard to win out the initial fight and the second one. Empire up and on to match point.
That's a huge round from Empire, especially contending with the issue of that yokai drone that even I couldn't see where it was positioned down at. Empire trying desperately to hunt that one out, put them onto a 0-time plant there. If the push from TSM in those final seconds was just a little bit stronger, they may have taken the round, but the perfect cutoffs, especially to the top of the square hatch, saves their player's life, saves their planter's life. Let's get another look at that dirty nitro cell, the way the round started out at. But once again, it didn't prove itself to be enough here. TSM failed to hold, and now need to go 2 straight to trigger overtime in the first map of the series.
So what is the site allocation for TSM? Well, it looks like they want to head back down to lockers and see if they can have a successful defense. And not only that, it's also going to be the roam initially here, but it's attack pause in the moment here. I'm assuming it's for TSM. We'll get the graphic up here in just a second. And, well, wouldn't you know, I'll be correct about that. As well, given the circumstances, if TSM didn't use their attack pause, then you'd be questioning a lot about what Pojo was doing back there. But fortunately enough for them, he's got some wise words to say in the moment, and hopefully something that bags him 2 rounds.
Yep, keep in mind here, folks, TSM still negotiated control out of 2 of 3 of the sites they played into on their first go-arounds. They're not out of this fight just yet, and that's more than likely what Pojo Man is telling them here as they get ready to head into what could be the final round of this map here. But at the same time, could very well be the start of the comeback from TSM. If they can fix that small issue there of their inner site control at the very end of that basement hold, and then return to the other site where they also found success, they're right back in this. They've triggered OT, and with 2 additional rounds, they can still take map number 1 here, but Empire are looking strong. Their mid-round adjustments are far outwitting those of TSM right now, and on top of the fragging strength of the overall roster, it's looking like we could very well see them steal map number 1 away from TSM, who was the team that picked into this.
And that's been the scary thing here for TSM, is that Empire constantly are able to take these gunfights and find success in them. We even see it on site inside of that, where they're able to take down Geo, one of the only people that can stop this plant and slow them down, especially past Chala's utility. Yes, yokai drones are fantastic, but they're no longer invisible. They're very easy to find once you start launching those sonar blasts at people. So you really want the smoke to be able to work alongside that, but TSM just didn't have that to offer.
So let's see here now as the prep phase is going to close itself down, and once again, Empire will be thrusted onto the map. TSM bringing a very similar lineup to the table, but we are also going to see, I believe, a new wrinkle being added in here. The Cade coming out here to try and isolate out some of these hatches and keep them closed a little bit later into the round, on top of course, the Castle Barricade still delaying. We saw that before, and once again, Chala bringing those yokai drones in as they worked out pretty much flawlessly in the previous round.
Well, now opening 30 seconds here for Empire as they begin clearing this top floor. Also have some drones and some pretty cheeky spots out here towards lobby to make sure that Joystick is safe and sound. Won't lose his life early on this time around. As well as the Inox here to be able to assist him out towards the main stairs, get some insight onto the Kaid player who will shoot back onto him, but nobody hitting their marks here in the moment. Joystick will shoot back as well, as Bolo's going to be manning this door. He's going to pop it open, but this is so very dangerous, at least for right now. Joystick even fighting with the Inox on in the moment, won't be able to land his shots. Bolo going to take a little bit of heat, but achieved up and on in the moment here. Not able to find too much. Joystick going to take a lot of damage, but it's actually Shepard to strike first as he'll take down Merc.
TSM wanting such an aggressive opener in this round, and they'll finally get their response here as Scyther bites off a little bit more than he can chew. Bolo being the one to pick that up for TSM, but at the same time, they've suffered some pretty big losses themselves, relatively even after everything calms down for a moment, as Bolo still took a lot of damage from his fight, and Joystick still was nearly found out on the initial engagement there. He's sitting at about 20 HP left also, just like Bolo here. So both teams losing a player and nearly losing a second inside of the first half of the round.
Oh, Joystick knows somebody's in this space, and he's found him now. So very dangerous for the Castle player in this moment, but luckily enough, Joystick is so very low as well. So this ump can most definitely work out if he lands his shots, and just like that, Joystick's down. Dan's here to try and refrag, and he'll achieve that. He's been able to, well, keep Dan alive, or rather Joystick, as he'll be able to pick him back up. They'll continue to be able to use his utility. Well, actually, he's out, but he still has the smokes as well on top of that, and having another man alive in this situation is definitely going to assist them.
Yeah.
Bolo looking to try and find some more stuff inside of open area as well, as he'll continue to hold on to the hatch, but he's going to drop off as we enter the last 45 seconds.
Far too many losses in the early round here for TSM, and them failing to translate the kill against Joystick has only made it even worse here. 4 versus 3 as well. Bolo still heavily injured is going to leave Empire with potentially a free entry they could play for here when they try to drop themselves into the basement. As long as they can exchange out the remaining kills here, even if they lose the first duel, they will still win the round here. But at the same time, look at the time. There's only 20 seconds of it left, and Empire haven't even started descending into the basement yet. Finally, that will change. It's going to be an elevator hatch drop. Not only from there, but they'll drop into Gold Bar Vault also here. Shepard trying to wrap himself in. They don't have a lot of angles to play with, and of course, no time to open up the site, but that's not going to matter if they can frag out the entire roster. Gio's down. Bolo left alive, but he doesn't even see any of the members of Empire. They take map number 1 here as they steal TSM's map pick with a final score of 7-4.
And on that timer, Bolo with an opportunity inside of the 1vx, but just not able to achieve it. Empire with a map that they haven't played